right, I am happy to be joined this morning with MindCure Health CEO Kelsey Ramsden joins us once again. Kelsey, how are things?
Spectacular, sir. Doing great.
I know it's things continue to move fast. Obviously, there was a great report last week with the New England Journal of Medicine on the report with psilocybin. So that garnered a lot of attention. But how are things on the business front for you? Because I know things have been, let's face it, from an investment perspective, it's been a little challenging for the overall sector over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I look at the stock price once a day,
Yeah.
and I just think, like any business, you execute, you deliver results, you get results. It's pretty straightforward. And in the near term or the short term, like most of us in the industry, a lot of folks are solidifying their business models. A lot of folks are getting out of the gate. Like pretty much, we're all startups.
Yeah.
And so, you have to just, I think, be disciplined, diligent, not get distracted by sentiment, and know
Yeah.
you're building a strong team, strong product, strong business model. And so, that's where my head's been at. Nobody likes looking at their stock price go down, but I know that's not based on what we're building. That's based on some sentiment. So we're going to be okay.
What are you hearing overall as far as the overall health of the industry when you're speaking to different people? Like, you're a CEO of a company. I'm sure there's analysts that you have to speak as well with. But when you look at reports last week, and again, the momentum starts to build, you see a company like Atai Life Sciences and MindMed going on the NASDAQ. What do you think is the overall direction and the advice that maybe you want to provide my viewers and investors?
Sure. I think two things: fundamentals.
Yeah.
And fundamentals.
Yeah.
We started out with a lot of excitement, and again, sentiment driven, which is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of folks flooding in, and now we see the rubbers hitting the road. We're sitting, the men from the boys, so to speak. So who's actually building something of material value? Look at Atai.
Women to the girls too, right?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think it's only me left standing. There was one other female CEO of a psychedelics company, and she's no longer there. So, but I think, for investors, if they're looking at the sector, I think there's two things to look at with respect to valuations at the moment. One is look at war chests. So how are people trading to cash? Because I think there's a lot of good buys out there where people are trading near their cash price, which is insane. Then the second piece is look at revenue gen, because everybody has a blue sky. Everyone's saying we're doing some research and we're hoping it comes across the line. What we know is that 15% of research projects actually get to market. So that's 15% of us are going to, catch the Hail Mary.
Right.
And in the meantime, who is generating revenue? Who has a business model outside of drug dev?
Good That's questions to ask. Well, you brought up execution before. You recently announced several enhancements to the iSTRYM platform in recent weeks, which is exciting. So, including a data partnership with Speak AI and partnerships with LUCID Incorporated. So, this will help optimize mental health wellness through music. And I know we talked about this last time. So, how did this all come together, and why should shareholders and potential new investors take note?
So, psychedelic assisted psychotherapy oftentimes includes a music component as part of the set and setting. I think most folks know and understand that.
Yep.
To date, most of it's been done through some kind of Spotify playlist or, whatever list a person likes. What we are building with iSTRYM is this idea of like science-backed, evidence-based. So every component piece we bring into the tech platform, we want to make sure that those folks have built something that's based on scientifically proven adaptations, improvements to every piece. So in this case, music, set and setting, what we know is that LUCID has built a platform, an AI-driven music set that helps therapists get their patients to certain mindsets more quickly and with specificity. And what MindCure is doing with them that no one else is doing is allowing those therapists to drive that sentiment in session. So as opposed to being like the regularly scheduled flight pattern, looks like you take off on psilocybin, you spend 30 minutes getting to this, you do 20 minutes here, we've built something that allows a therapist to say, every case is different. I want to guide this person here and keep them here for this long. So it's really, really spectacular what we're able to do.
Yeah, it sounds interesting for sure. Is this the branding strategy of the overall concept of the company that you want to, I guess, be led by?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I believe and what I'm seeing is that we are, again, building the largest data repository of real world experience in psychedelic medicine. And, from my perspective, what we're missing, and again, to your point around investors and looking at the segment, we are the distribution model.
Yeah.
So it's great when we have all these molecules, but how do we get them into clinics?
Right.
How do we get therapists doing great care? How are we collecting the data en masse to keep advancing it? And there's no one else building the distribution model for the actual rollout of psychedelics.
Right.
And I'm really excited about being the first to doing that.
What's the idea, or an idea of the total addressable market that this platform could address?
Yeah, I mean, in the States, there's over 50,000 clinics that are doing some form of psychotherapy. We believe that
many already. Wow.
Well, those are doing psychotherapy. So we think about 10% of that market will be early adopters. So they're going to be offering some form of psychedelic therapy.
Okay.
And then, the old early adopter curve goes up and skews, and as the things keep rolling out. But I think the thing that's important to note is because our tech platform can scale globally, we can go legally into places like Costa Rica, into Peru, into locations in Amsterdam that are already offering psychedelic assisted psychotherapy.
Right.
And there are a few thousand clinics in those locations doing those things today. So we start to rev gen globally, and then we can keep going. In the States, there are about 1,500, and they're growing every day, ketamine clinics. So it's a large addressable market, and ultimately iSTRYM goes beyond psychedelics into general therapy as well. So we capture the entire therapy market.
Well, you look at some of these apps, like for meditation, Calm, the way it's developed. I remember the presidential election that took place. They were marketing that, which was brilliant. But even people like LeBron James that have gotten involved. So there's tremendous growth for overall health and wellness for sure outside of the psychedelic landscape. I want to focus my attention now on ATMA. You recently announced a further strategic investment with the private healthcare company conducting legal psychedelic assisted therapy for palliative care patients under Health Canada's Section 56 exemption. I guess with an already existing partnership with a multi-clinic psychotherapy practice, does this pave the way to open up opportunities in other clinical practices as well?
Yeah, I mean, part of our model is this idea that when we partner and invest in clinics, and predominantly integrated clinics or group therapy clinics, that allows us an opportunity to have a really close partner with rolling out our digital therapeutics. And it gives us access to insight into the market that not everyone's going to have across a multiplicity of medicines and care models. So part of it is data and market insight. Part of it is access for our tech. And part of it is just like pure relationship building. I think we're going to see some different things happen in the industry with respect to acquisitions. And I think the closer you are to folks, the better it is.
How's the relationship building going for the most part with other companies within the industry?
Great. I mean, for the most part, people are really open. I think we're all the people who have a bit of a business plan and have the confidence to take those kind of calls. I think everyone understands that a rising tide is going to float all the boats.
Right.
So to some degree, working together is better than working alone.
It's incredible how much this industry in a lot of ways has changed, like even in a short period of time. You think about last fall to where it is now, but there's a little bit more clarity as to the overall direction of the industry. Speaking of clarity, man, have you been busy? Your leadership team, the last 6 weeks, you've solidified your leadership team positions at CEO, COO, and Vice President of Growth and Strategic Partnership. No easy task, to say the least, in a short period of time. So where are we today? Do you feel your executive team is where it needs to be?
We're still looking on the research side for a couple of folks we've got offers out on. So I feel like we're here.
Okay.
We have a strong CFO. Everybody knows you need a good wingman.
Yeah.
Our VP of Growth and Partnerships has a long history in bringing not only drugs to market, but devices to market.
Yeah.
So on the tech platform side, that's good. Bringing folks in from different industries. I feel like the one thing that I've done well in all of my scale ups has been build a team,
Yep.
build a plan and execute like a crazy person. And so that's, build the team. We're
Right.
there.
Yeah.
We've got the plan, and now it's just keep your head down and deliver.
Would you say on your previous experiences based on your personality, yeah, it comes down to business fundamentals. And part of that is, not once, but twice you were named Entrepreneur of the Year here in Canada. So character building obviously is huge. Relationship is big. What would you say, outside of what we talk about day to day business are your strongest attributes as far as leading a company?
I think that something I see happening, and I think even to the digital therapeutics platform, is lots of folks are just thinking too small.
Okay.
They're just looking at what was done in cannabis. Let's do the same thing. What did these people, how has it always been done in drug dev? And I've always been fortunate in that I come from, secondary industries or other industries into new places. And I never had the paradigm that there was anything other than the globe. I never had the paradigm that this is how it's always been done. So we have to do it that way. And I think, I think that's what you're going to see with MindCure is we've been pretty renegade so far, and we'll
Yeah.
continue to revolutionize. And, there are valuable aspects to having an experienced team. And that's why we're building those
Yeah.
people and bringing those people. But we're also saying, why not a new way?
Yeah.
Why not a bigger way? Why not a different way?
I find that interesting. So you're thinking big picture here across the globe. Do you like, without naming names, but when you see the overall complexion of the industry right now, are you seeing a lot of companies with the mindset that they're thinking too small?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot, and that's no slag on anybody else. I think there's just different ways of building businesses. Some people are kind of this like, let's be locally grown, locally operated. Some people are really happy operating in Canada or the States, and they feel like let's just bite off something of that size. But my businesses before were global, and I
Right.
guess it's just a little bit of that's the glasses I see the world through.
Good point. Last thing I want to touch on is your ongoing research with Ibogaine. In early March, you announced that it has begun the first stage of manufacturing pharmaceutical grade Ibogaine to be used in preclinical and clinical research. So, what's the latest on the manufacturing process, and why the excitement and focus on trialing Ibogaine for treating neurodegenerative disorders?
Great. Two things. One is when we looked across the market and we started to identify opportunities to go synthetic,
Hmm.
because we know we need synthetics for clinical trials. Ibogaine, to me, it's an underserved market. There really isn't anybody else producing Ibogaine. And there's a lot of people who want to do research for addiction with Ibogaine. So it made good sense to be the first people out of the gates in developing our own synthetics. We're doing it here in Canada, which is amazing. And the promise of Ibogaine is obviously it's the number one drug focused on addiction. The opiate crisis is gigantic, so the market's reasonable. So that was a direct line, just a total classic business move. What's the market? How much can we make? Can we be the first?
Right.
Yes, yes, yes. Let's do that. And then on the second piece around where our research is headed, there is some indication that neuroregeneration is benefited from Ibogaine. And so we're working with Dr. Dan Engel preclinical on defining what that research could look like. But I've been, there's lots of folks out in the market already with what research they're doing, and just, maybe not rushing, but seemingly
Yeah.
kind of taking up space. And my 2 cents to the team was, let's be deliberate. We may have 5 ideas. Let's pick the one we know.
Hmm.
And so we're being really disciplined on that approach of just not, naming molecules and launching into a bunch of things. Because look at what's happened to the stock prices in our industry,
Hmm.
and think about war chests, and think about capital burn. So these folks who are going out and saying, we're going to do 4, 5, 6 molecules, like anybody who's in the game knows, this is not a cheap endeavor.
No.
So you really, I think, have to be tremendously disciplined and say, let's do a little bit of pre-work to determine which pony we're going to put our bet on.
Well,
And
accessibility is going to be a big thing too, right?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So we're still, I mean, we're headlong, but we're early days in some respects.
Well, I find it interesting. Like I've asked this to yourself and a few others about what are some of the important investment questions that investors need to be asking when entering this space. But equally as important, I guess this is the part I'm still learning, and there is a lot of people learning as well. What are some of the medical questions that people really need to understand? And it can be a little overwhelming because, as you said, like there's a lot of people that say we're doing innovative, groundbreaking research. One thing that is encouraging, though, and I got a chance to speak with Dr. Michael Hart, who's been on Joe Rogan's podcast as well. And he was saying that himself, along with a number of peers within his industry across North America, are very much anxious, or they're eager to get all over this type of alternative medicine. They're big believers in it. And are you hearing the same thing from some of the peers that you're speaking with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, people are very keen for us to get the research across the line to get into clinic because, there's so much anecdotal and real world evidence to support a multiplicity of these medicines.
Right.
But I would say from an investor perspective, yeah, like it's hard sometimes to tell, is this a legitimate molecule? What is this going to look like? And I've kind of taken this perspective with my own investment paradigm, and for whatever value that's worth, is just mapping, okay, if we're looking at treatment-resistant depression,
Yep.
and we have 26 clinical studies having been announced with psilocybin against depression.
Right.
If 15% of those come in, that's still a fair number of mushrooms for depression.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of think about who are people that are looking at molecules for indications where the market's not yet flooded.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something to be said for looking at that.
Yeah.
And I think there's also something to be said for looking at how quickly some of these drugs are going to roll out. So we have ketamine today. MDMA will be next. It's probably 2022, 23. Psilocybin is 20.
You think it'll take that long for MDMA?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, Rick Doblin just got asked to do a pediatric study for MDMA. So before they get on to the full FDA, phase 4 FDA approval, they have to do the PED study now, which is not unreasonable and is pretty common. But yeah, I mean, I think it's 2022, 23 for MDMA, and psilocybin 23, 24, because it's not just regulation, it's research.
Right.
And these things, as much as we entrepreneurs are aggressive and want things to move at lightning speed, research is research, man. It just takes some time.
I hear you. That's one thing I've noticed, even from starting my media company. You want these things to move fast, but you realize, slow down there, soldier. Time research, that's one thing that cannot be obviously fast tracked. But I really appreciate you taking the time here this morning. I know you've been really busy lately and putting together your team, but great to hear feedback on the direction of the company, global aspirations. Really like the mindset that you have in play, and at the same time too, thinking big, and no opportunity is too big for you. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's keep in touch, and we'll have you back on the next couple of weeks again. Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Thanks, Kelsey.